started recording my video. Okay. Then we start with question 1. Question 1, what is your sex? So there's a response attached. There are responses attached, and to each response there's a specific code, right? So there's something that I'm going to introduce you is something which is called the scale of measurement. Scale of measurement. And the following are scale of measurement. We've got nominal, then we've got ordinal, then we've got ratio, then we've got scale. Others scale, they call it interval. So what determines whether your study is quantitative or qualitative is dependent on the scale of measurement. Are we together? For you to call your data set to be qualitative, then it means for the questions that you have, the scale of measurement can either be nominal or ordinal. Every time when you have a scale of measurement which is nominal or ordinal, then just know that the data that you have is qualitative. Are we together? You might have numbers in your data, but if you specified that the scale of measurement is nominal or ordinal, then just know that your data set is purely qualitative. Are we together? Then, when you specify, or if you've specified that ratio or interval is my scale of measurement, and just know that the data that you have is quantitative. Is that clear? Then now let's start with a nominal variable. So you can only specify something to be a nominal variable if the answers that you've attached to your question, let me pick question 1 as an example. If the answers that you've attached to that particular questions can be categorized, are we together? If you are able to categorize your answers, then the scale of measurement is going to be nominal. Are we together? Have you seen the way question 1 is? What is your sex? I've put category 1 is what? Male. Category 2 is what? Female, right? Now, something unique is that the categories that you are going to create for it to fall under a nominal or rather a categorical variable is that the groups should be exclusive and they should be exhaustive. In other words, if I come up with categories, I should come up with categories that are exhaustive and exclusive. So when you come up with categories, it means beyond that, there are no other categories that can exist. Are we together? If you've put responses where your categories are final, beyond that, there are no other categories that can exist, then just know that that can be specified by a nominal scale of measurement. Are we together? For instance, when you take question 1, they have put male and female. Beyond this, there's no other category that can exist. I know that there are scenarios where someone has got both, but at least one is supposed to be active. And depending on which organ is active, then that person will be determined to be male or female, right? So it's not possible that we can have another category here, or maybe there is a new category which I don't know. Is there anyone who can add another category to this one? So what we know as legally are these 2 categories, right? So beyond this, there are no other categories that can exist. Then by virtue of us putting this in specific categories, then it means we can now measure this under a nominal scale of measurement, because it's just a nominal scale of measurement which deals with things that are in groups. Are we together? Then for ordinal variables is where you are able to rank your answers. I'll give an example. Someone can ask you, how should I put it so that you understand it better? Someone can frame a lot of questions, maybe about 10. Then they'll ask you to rate what they have asked you, right? Then they'll give you a rating scale. Strongly agree, agree. The middle response, some they'll put neutral, others they'll put I don't know. Then you move on. What comes after that? Disagree, right? Then you strongly disagree. So it means you are going to answer attaching your feeling depending on how someone has asked you a question. How do you find it easy to access services from the police, to access police services in your locality? Then you're going to put, but it cannot be strongly agree the way I've framed it, right? The way I've framed the question, it cannot be strongly agree, strongly disagree. There are others, how do they frame? There's a way in which they frame questions. What's that other format? What's the other format? Who can help me? Sir, do you have an idea? Instead of putting strongly agree, they use other words, but it still maintains the same, doesn't change. Sorry? Passive? Yeah, so the rating is okay, which is supposed to be 5 point, but the way I phrased the question was, how do you rate police services in your locality? So I want to attach my feelings based on the rate which someone has given me, right? And it will always be a 5-point rating, which is called a Rickety scale of rating. But, sorry? Exactly. Very good, bad, very good, good, neutral, bad, very bad. Exactly, right? So it means depending on the question that someone has asked me, and depending the way I feel about police services in my locality, I'm going to put very bad, for instance. If it's to me, it has been very bad. And another person is going to say very good, right? So it means I'm trying to attach my feeling to something, right? And that feeling of mine is depending on a scale which I've been given. Very good, good, neutral. So such questions, immediately you frame such question and just know that the scale of measurement is going to be ordinal. If you've got something that you can rank, for the first one, which is a nominal, we are saying something that we are able to put in groups, right? Then for the second one, we are saying that something that we can rank. Are we together? So once you are able to rank something, and once you have designed a questionnaire with such questions, and just know that what you are dealing with is ordinal. So we are done with what? Nominal and ordinal, which falls under which approach? Is it qualitative or quantitative? Qualitative. Now we move on, we go to quantitative. Quantitative, we said there's a ratio, and there is which one? Interval. Is there anyone who can give an example on interval or rather scale? Can temperature be an interval? It can, right? So you can ask someone a question, what's the temperature of this? Then someone will say 30 degrees Celsius, this one 20 degrees Celsius, this one 7 degrees Celsius. And you've seen here, we are going now to be dealing with numbers. Even if someone wrote a question in numbers, in letters, else we are going to convert that into a number. So when you have such questions which can be classified as intervals, then just know that you are dealing with what? Which approach? Quantitative. Then you can give an example of a ratio. Sorry? Male to female ratio, right? We are trying to do a comparison between the two things or more, right? But for us to do a good comparison, it should be numerical in nature. You can say 2 full colon 10, then you're trying to compare the two. That these two, the 10 will be greater than the 2 here, right? So you're trying to do things, we are trying to compare things which are coming in a numerical nature. So once we are able to classify that for this particular question, the scale of measurement which we can attach to this question is a ratio. Then just know that you are dealing with the quantitative. Are we together? If you are able to determine that this particular question, the scale of measurement, is interval or scale, then just know that you are dealing with quantitative. So you can now move on and start dealing with SPSS, right? So here, I'll show you how to create the data template. Then I'll also show you how to enter data in the data view. Then I'll ask you now to open the data set which I created, which all of us have. Are we in SPSS? So let's click on variable view, because we are starting with a variable view. What's the first column in the variable view there? What's the first column? The first column is called name, right? So name, that's where you type the question number. Are we together? So us, we would prefer starting with the questionnaire identity first, right? So we can type in the first row there, we can type QID, which is questionnaire identification. We just written it as an abbreviation. QID. Then you can now move on to the next cell in the same row, but the next cell. So have you seen that when you are tempted to move from cell number 1 or from column number 1 to column number 2, you've got everything being populated there, right? Or you've got something coming. Are you able to see numeric there has come, then width, then 2, all the way up to measurement? This side, have you seen those? Okay. So here under the type, that's where we want to specify. Is our variable numeric or is our variable string? So it's string, it means it is falling under qualitative. Are we together? Then if it's numeric, then it's falling under which one? Quantitative. Are we together? So we have to specify that this particular question is string, it means it's qualitative. If it's numeric, then it means quantitative. Are we together? So for the questionnaire identification number, let's agree. Which one? Is it numeric or string? Questionnaire identification number. It's numeric, just from the word itself, a questionnaire identification number. It can only be a numeric. Are we together? So the questionnaire identification number is where you've labeled your questionnaires. Questionnaire 001, 002, 003, 003, all the way up to the last questionnaire. So it means we are going to maintain that at numeric. Then we move on to width, something important, more especially when you are dealing with open-ended questions. An example would be question 6. Question 6 is as follows. What role should students play in the fight against HIV/AIDS? Definitely for that particular question, the expectation is that someone is going to give us a story, right? Someone is going to narrate a story. So here, if I say my width is 8, then it means when I go in my data view, I can only enter up to 8 characters. Are we together? For this particular question, for that particular variable, which is the QID, are we together? Because that's why I'm specifying that here I want to enter only 8 characters. Are we together? And the character is equivalent to a single number. And at the same time, a character is equivalent to a single letter. Are we together? So if I put 8 here, then someone gave me a response which is sensitization. Then it means I can only enter the first 8 characters. If I exceed the 8 characters which I specified under width, SPSS will automatically reject and move on to another cell. Are we together? In other words, what you are putting in here is more like a logic command or programming where you say that if I exceed this, then you have to move on to the next cell. So if I put 8 here, then it means I'm commanding SPSS to say that SPSS, you can only accept up to 8 characters. Are we together? So if someone gave me a response to say students should do sensitization campaigns in school, then it means from that answer, if I want to type that entire answer, I can only type the first 8 letters of that answer. Immediately I exceed the 8 characters which I'd put there, SPSS will move on to the next cell. Are we together? And this is key when you're dealing with open-ended questions where you are likely to get a longer response. Are we together? So you should put a number here depending on the length of the answer that you are likely to get for that particular question. Are we together? That's the number that you should put here. And for SPSS, it's always easy. Even if you had put 50 for instance, right? Then when you start entering data here, then you realize that the response that you got is actually going above 50. You can always navigate back to the variable view and change the number there. It's very easy. Are we together? But for some softwares like CS Pro, because there's a little bit of programming there, if you miss out and it turns out that the number of characters that you specified there cannot accommodate the answer that you've gotten now, then it means you have to redo everything. But for SPSS, it's very easy. So very important only if you are dealing with open-ended questions where you are likely to get a longer answer which can exceed above 8 characters. Are we together? But if you are adding questions where you are so sure that the answers that I'm going to get will be within the range, don't even bother to change it. Just leave it. Are we together? For instance, like question 1. Question 1, that's why we've got those specific codes attached. So when I start entering the data, I will not enter male. No. All what I'll enter is just 1, which is a single character, right? Which falls within the range. So that's why I'm saying that don't even bother to change it because it will be a sheer waste of time. Just move on, move on, move on. Only when you know that the answer that you are likely to get will exceed the number of characters here, then change. Are we together? So in this case, we can just leave it the way it is. Then decimals there. So this leaves us to decimal points. Do I want to have decimal points for that particular question? In this case, we are dealing with a questionnaire identity. Do we really need to have decimal points or not? We don't need decimal points, right? Then we can put that number to 0. There are arrows, one pointing up and one pointing down. You can click on the one down to reduce the zeros, or you can just delete that 2 there and write a 0. Are we together? Then on the label, that's when now you put the exact question as it appears from the questionnaire. If the question was, what's your marital status? Then you are going to type what's your marital status there, right? But in this case, we are dealing with what? What are we dealing with? Questionnaire identification. So now we can write questionnaire identification in full. And you can always put space in between words. So let's type questionnaire identification in full. Questionnaire identification. Questionnaire identification. Label, that's where you put the question as it appears from the questionnaire. Then on values, that's when now you put the responses as attached to that particular question. An example would be question 1. We attach those responses, right? So it means since we had the responses attached, we were supposed to enter responses there. But do we have n responses attached to the questionnaire identity? Do we have n answers attached to the questionnaire identity? We do not have, right? So it means we are also going to leave it blank. Are we together? Then our work mostly ends on values here. I'll explain later on the missing values. Then when you go to your right side there, you've seen where it is written measure. So it has given you scale. So by you putting numeric there, SPSS is able at least to determine that anything that is in numerical format can be measured as a scale. Have you seen? Okay. So it means we are done with the questionnaire identification number. So now to move on to question 1. It will come automatically, depending on what you've specified on type here. If you put nominal, if you had put string, it will come there as nominal. By default, when you put string, then the nominal value will come there. But remember, if you're dealing with the rating one, that's when now you can go on and change it to what? To ordinal. So it means we are done with the QID. We now move on to question 1. So I'll repeat again. Under column name, that's where we put the question number. So we are dealing with sex. What's the question number for sex? Question 1, right? So let's put Q1 to mean question 1. Then we move on to the next cell. So we have to determine question 1. Is it numeric or is it a string variable? So let's determine question 1. You can navigate back to your questionnaire. What's your sex? 1 male, 2 female. Is it numeric or string? It's string, right? Because we determined that it's a nominal variable, right? It's a nominal scale of measurement which falls under what? Qualitative. So let's click on those 3 dots coming right side of the cell under type. Have you seen those 3 dots? When you click on those dots, it will give you a dialog box. What's the second option from the bottom? String. Then we can click on string. Then have you seen right top there, characters? So characters is equivalent to a width. So if I change the number there, then it means I've already changed for the width. So if you want to prove it, let's put 5 there. Let's put 5 on characters, then click on OK. Has the number changed on width? That's changed to 5, right? So that characters there is equivalent to width. Then by default, once you put string, then this decimal points will be zeros because it's qualitative. So we don't expect someone to be male point something, right? Exactly. Then under label, I'll say for the last time, that's when now we enter the actual question as it appears from the questionnaire. So the question is, what's your sex? So you can type what is your sex, right? What is your sex? Question mark. Sorry? You can copy and just paste it there. You can copy from the questionnaire and paste it. Then we are done. We move on now, we go to values, right? Are we moving together? Have you noticed that there are 3 dots coming when you are in the column values there? So click on those 3 dots. Once you do that, you've got a dialog box coming, right? Value labels, value, then the label. So on value, that's why we're going to put that specific code that you attach to the response. So in this case, we've got male, which is 1, right? So we can put 1 there. Under label, we can put male. Immediately you've typed something there, have you noticed that the add option is now active? So you can click on it. So in other words, what we are doing here, we are coding these things. So have you seen that 1 is equal to what? Male. So it means when I come in my data view, I don't have to be typing every time male. I'll just enter 1. If I enter 1, then SPSS will know that is what? Male. Exactly. So we are coding things here now. Then we move on. What's the second response? What are we going to put under value? 2. Then label female. Then I'm going to click on add. And when it comes for causal, if put 1 or 2, doesn't mean that always it's going to be 1 or 2. It's up to you to decide, but provided you know that 99 is representing female, right? 1000 is representing male. It's up to you, but you should be able to know. Are we together? Try to click on female. Try to click on female. What has changed? The remove option is active. Have you noticed? So it means if you had made a mistake and you want to remove that one, you just click on that particular thing that you want to remove and the remove option will come. Then you just click on it, then the variable will go. Are we together? Then if you wanted to make changes to the same variable, which is variable female, it means immediately I change something under label or under value there, then the change option, which is the option in the middle, will become active. Then I'll click on it to effect the changes. Are we together? Then let's click on OK. Then check your measure. What's the measure? What's your measure? Nominal. This side, what do you have? It's nominal, right? So at least SPSS is able to tell that this is a nominal variable. But for ordinal, it doesn't tell. It means you have to manually change it. Are we together? So we move on. What's next? Question 2. So you can type Q2. Then we know that Q2, that's numeric because it's age. So someone's going to say 23, 24. Even if someone wrote something as 24 in weights, then when entering here, you're going to write that 24 as a number. So it's going to remain as numeric, right? Then for width, should we change that? Should we increase? There is no one who can be aged with about 8 characters, right? So it means even if we leave it the way it is, we are still within the range. Do we need decimal points for age? No, we don't. So we can put that at 0. What are we going to put under label? What is your age, right? Then for the sake of time, we are just going to put age. But we know that what we are supposed to put here is supposed to be the actual question. Or you can also even decide to narrow the questions. You don't want to enter the entire question. You can just narrow it and pick something that is going to stand for that question, right? Instead of me writing, what was your age on your last birthday? I'll just put age. It's enough. Since I've got the full question from the questionnaire, are we together? It's up to me who is entering data to decide, and it's up to me who is going to be the user of this data set to decide. No one can dictate. Are we together? Because I'm the owner and I'm the author of this data set. So I've got autonomy. Then under values, what is supposed to be put under values? Let's be together, class. What are we supposed to put under values? Hello? Sorry? It's 9 because we don't have any answers attached to question 2. At this point, we are not entering what someone answered. We are just entering the actual template of the questionnaire. We want to make it electronic. That's the use of the variable view. Then entering now, if someone ticked on female, someone wrote 23, will come in the data view. So here we are just transforming the same physical copy of the questionnaire into an electronic copy. So we don't have any answers attached to that question, right? So it means we are done. Then when you check the scale of measurement there, it has changed to scale. Then we move on, we go to question 3. So we are going to skip question 3. So let's scale of measurement. No, it will change on its own. So if you put numeric here, then SPSS is able to put scale this side. Then if you put string, SPSS is able to put for nominal. But if you've got an ordinal variable where I've got a very good, neutral, bad, very bad, or strongly agree, disagree, I said that's an ordinal variable. SPSS is unable to tell which one is an ordinal variable. So if you had a question which was an ordinal variable, then you need to manually change. Exactly. But for nominal and the scale, it will come automatically. So let's skip, we go to question 4. Don't skip a row, just skip a question. Don't skip a row. So Q4. So let's type Q4. Under Q2, you're typing Q4. Don't skip any row. Then question 4 is on which religion group do you belong to? It has got answers. Protestant, Catholic, Muslim, others. So is this question, which religion group do you belong to? So then it has got the following answers. 1, Protestant, 2, Catholic, 3, Muslims, then 4 others. Is this question a quantitative or qualitative? It's qualitative. I've put in categories. Then for me to limit the categories, I've put the final option there, which is others. So it means if there are other religions which haven't specified, they will fall in the category others. So it means I've provided the options available for this particular question. Beyond this, there are no other categories that can exist. Are we together? That's why I've put the others there. Then if I just put Protestant, Catholic, Muslim, without putting others in, it can't be qualitative. It can either be both qualitative or quantitative. Because there can be Judaism, right? Which I haven't provided for there. There is Confucianism, which I haven't provided for there. There is Buddhism, which I haven't provided for here. Are we together? But for me now to limit this to qualitative, I've gone on to provide the option, which is others. So it means all those other things, they will fall into category what? Others. But if we exclude option others there, then it means in as much as I've provided the categories, there are more categories that can exist beyond this, right? So it's possible that if someone is not a Christian and that person is not a Catholic and that person is not a Muslim, they'll just leave this question blank because there's no applicable category for them, right? But if I put category others, it means if the first 3 groups does not apply to them, then it means they will tick on category number 4. So by virtue of doing this, I'm limiting this question to qualitative. If I haven't done that, then this question can either be both qualitative or quantitative, depending on what I want to do for that particular question. Are we together? So we've agreed that this is qualitative, so we can go back to SPSS. So we are going to change that to numeric. We are going to change that to string. Then on the width, what are we going to change the width? No, we don't have to change because we've got answers, and thus we are going to be dealing with codes. Instead of writing Protestant, I'll just go and write a code attached to Protestant. So we are still within the range, right? Then under the label there, you can put the actual question. So you can just say religion for the sake of time. Then under values, 1, what's the first option? The first option is Protestant, right? So I'll put 1 under value, then I'll put Protestant. Protestant. Then 2 to be what? Catholic, right? Then 3, Muslim. Then 4, others. Click on add and I click on OK. So it means I'm done with my question 4. Any question? So now here, we now realize that we skipped question 3. So we want now to fix in question 3 between Q2 and question 4. That's where we want our question 3 to be, right? Have you seen that there are numbers coming before column name, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So if I want to place or to insert a variable between Q2 and Q4, between Q2 and Q4, it means I have to place my cursor on the column below, not on the column. If I want to place or to insert a variable between Q2 and Q4, which is Q3, right? Because it will come in the middle there. So it means I'll place my cursor under the variable, under question 4. If I want it to come between Q2 and Q4. Are we together? Then if I want it to come between Q1 and Q2, then I'll place my cursor on Q2. So I have always to place on the cursor on the upper limit. The upper limit means the highest number, right? So now, we want this question 3 to come between Q2 and Q4. What's the number for Q4 there? The number before Q4 is 4, right? So that's where I'm supposed to place my cursor and left click on my mouse. What has happened? And it's appearing in something like yellow. I don't know this color. Is it yellow or orange? Ladies are good with colors. Help us. What's that color? Have you noticed that the colors change, right? So once I do that, then I know that the variable that I'm going to insert will come between Q2 and Q4. Then now you can right click. You see there's a first option there, which is a copy, right? So if you wanted to copy, then you can copy and paste wherever you want to go and paste. Are we together? If you wanted to delete that particular variable, then you can click on clear there. When you click on clear, it means the entire variable will disappear. Are we together? Then if you want to insert a variable, you see that there's insert a variable there. Click on insert. Have you seen that you've got something which is coming there, right? It means you can just edit there. Where I've got the VAR00 there, I'll put what? Q3. Then I'll go on and edit everything. Q3, which is string variable. I'll go on and edit everything. 10 question. Are we moving together? So at this point, in the same manner we've entered Q1, Q2, Q3, I do believe that we can enter everything up to question 12. Is my assumption accurate? Yes, that's what I've said. We can end up to question 12. I've excluded question 13. So in the same manner we entered Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. We can enter question 5, we can enter question 6, and question 6 is an open-ended. So it means on values we leave it blank because we do not have any responses attached. Are we together? But remember, for question 6, on the width you need to change depending on the length of the answer that you are likely to get. Because the question there is asking someone to at least explain what law should students play in the fight against HIV/AIDS. At least you expect an answer that will go above 8 there. So you can always change your width there. Are we together? So now we go to question 13. End question here, is everything okay? Are we sure we can enter questions from question 5 all the way up to question 12 in the same manner, the way we've entered this? This side, are we able to do that? Okay, so we move on now to question 13. So question 13 is a multiple response question there. So the way we enter it as follows. So let's type Q13A. 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 Then multiple response is always numeric. Are we together? Multiple response are supposed to always be numeric. Otherwise, if you put a string, then at a point when you want to use the multiple response to analyze, the variables will not even appear. Are we together? So we have to maintain that as numeric. Do we need decimal points? We don't, because these unza pops are there. I mean unza back, unza seda. Then under label, let's type unza seda. Unza seda. Under label, you can type unza seda. The under values, you are going to type the yes or no. Are we together? So here again, you need to agree as a company which codes are you going to attach to yes or no. Are we together? So let's agree which code should we attach to to yes. Which code are we going to attach to yes? So we agree that yes is going to be represented by 1. So under value, we can put 1. Then under label, we can put yes. Then for no, let's put 2. So we've agreed as a compound that 2 is going to represent no. So you've got SPSS here. This is computer. Sorry? Sorry? No, I can't write something else if it's okay. No, it's not computer. You have 2 computers. You don't have a chat. Yes. So I've got a yes equal to yes. Sorry, 1 equal to yes and 2 equal to no. Where are you clicking on add? Yes, then you can click on OK. So it means we are done with the first response there. What's next? What could be next here? We've just done with unza said and we had unza said, unza response, unza peka, unza pops. Exactly. Thank you so much, sir. So it will be Q13 because we've already started here. So it can only be but Q13B. So we are going to say Q13B. So for the measure, just leave it. Sometimes it may come unknown. So for you, your work mostly ends on values. Only when you know that you are dealing with ordinal variables, where you know that SPSS is unable to bring ordinal variables automatically, then go and change. If it gives you unknown, then just leave it the way it is. So here we are putting unza response because that's our second response, right? Then as usual, the answers will be the yes or no. So for me, I've just decided to copy there and paste. Because it's the same, those are the same responses. So I've just copied and pasted. Instead of typing again value, 1, label, since everything is the same, I'll just copy. Then as usual on your decimals, you need to change. Okay, on your decimals, leave it on 2. Just for unza response, I want to explain something later. So it means I'm done with unza response, then I'll go on until I finish everything, until I finish all the options available. Are we together? So I can go on and include Q13C, then in the same manner, in the same order, then Q13D in the same manner, in the same order. Then it means I'm done because I only put 4 variables here, or rather 4 answers. Are we together? If I add up to question 10, up to, if my answers, if I had attached up to 10 answers, then I will start Q13A, Q13B, Q13C, Q13D, Q13E, Q13E, Q13G, all the way until I finish everything in this order. Are we together? So this is how we enter the multiple response. But I'll give you another scenario for the multiple response. Did I give you another scenario? Let's assume that the way we designed the questionnaire, right? We did not put a yes or no. It's question 13. Let's assume that where we've got a yes or no, we don't have the yes or no. Are we together? Or what we have is unza seda, unza popsa, unza beka, and unza what? Unza response, right? Then in brackets as usual, tick all that apply. Are we together? How can we enter that? So in the same manner we've entered this one. Are we together? It will still be Q13A, Q13B, Q13C, Q13D. Are we together? But here, where we've put unza seda, unza response, here we are just now going to write the entire question, which is if yes, which organization? If yes, which organization? For all of them, which is Q13A, Q13B, Q13C, Q13D. Are we together? Then in the values here, instead of entering yes or no, are we together? Instead of entering yes or no, because we no longer have the yes or no now. Or what we have just unza response, unza pops. Are we together? So it means I'll enter one, then put unza seda for Q13A. Are we together? I'll enter 1 and put unza seda. Then I move on. I go to Q13B. Then under values, I'll enter 1 again and put unza response. Are we together? Then Q13C, on values, I'll enter 1 and put unza popsa. Are we together? Then Q13D, I'll still enter 1 under value, then put unza beka. Are we together? So if you've noticed that the codes are uniform for all the responses, 1, 1, 1, 1 across. Have you noticed that? Exactly. So for the multiple response, if you had framed or if you had designed the question in that manner where you do not have the yes or no, or what you have are the actual responses, then it means all those responses are supposed to have a uniform code. Are we together? Now let's assume that I'd included option number 5, which is others. So it means that option is going to have now a separate code. Instead of giving it a 1, now it's going to be 2 because it's a standalone category. You see, different from unza beka, unza popsa, and the other organization listed. It will be a standalone. So I'm going to give it now a different code. Are we together? On the multiple response. I know for that, for other questions that we have, we've been having yes, 1, 2, no. This, regard it as multiple response. It's different from these other questions and it's supposed to be entered in this manner. If you haven't entered it in this manner, then it can never be a multiple response. Are we together? 10 question on the multiple response here. Is everything okay?
So for this one,
it will still be new. If you put now that category, which is category others, because now it limits everything. It means you've provided for all the categories that can be applicable there. So it means all those other categories that you have not listed there is falling in category others. So that one, it means you've now purely limited it to qualitative. But remember, it's a multiple response. I said multiple response can only be what? Numeric, right? Because if you put it as a qualitative or string, it will not come. I will show you at some point when we start dealing with a multiple response analysis. If you had put string, then the options will not even come. Because multiple response does not pick something which is in qualitative format. Are we together? So it means once you've now done entering all the questions from question 1 up to question 13, then it means now if you've collected the data now, it means that your template is now ready for data entry. So now you can navigate to data view now. So have you seen? Are you able to tell me something on what has happened from the data, from the variable view to the data view? Everything that you entered from your variable view is now appearing in your data view. Have you noticed that? Starting from your questionnaire ID, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Then we skipped other questions and we went to Q13A, Q13B, Q13C, Q13D. Have you noticed that? Wonderful. So here, as I said, this is where now we enter the data that we've collected from people. People have answered the questionnaires. Are we together? So we want to enter the data that we collected in the field. So we can start. So row number 1 there, it means that's questionnaire number 1. Are we together? Then a column A, it means a single question. A column like QID there, that's a column. Vertical. Then horizontal rows. Are we together? So a column is equivalent to a single question. Like you can see here, Q1, that's a column there, right? So it means you can only enter in answers that belongs to Q1. You can't bring an answer from question 13 and come and enter on Q1. Then it means there's a mistake there or there's an error. Are we together? Then for row number 1, it means you have to enter the entire questionnaire from questionnaire identification all the way up to the last question. In this case, the last question is question 13, right? So let's start. So for me, I know almost all the questions that are in this questionnaire which we are using. So let's say we are starting with questionnaire number 1, right? So it means on the QID there, we are going to put 1. Are we together? Then Q1 is a question which is talking about sex, right? So let's say someone who answered that person ticked on female. What are we going to put there? 2. What are you having? Is it a 2 which is coming there or female? It's a 2. Okay. Let's move on. Then Q2 is on age, right? Exactly. So let's type 20. Let's assume that this person was age 20. We type 20 as a number. Then there's question 3, right? So if you did not change, if you are still having VAR, whatever you have in the variable v is what will appear here. So for me, I edited to question 3, but I did not code the values under I did not code my variables under values here. Are we together? So, but I know for question 4, we coded everything in full. Am I correct? So question 4 is talking about religion. Let's say this one ticked on others. What was the code attached to others? 4. Yes, on question 4 is on religion. We are assuming that this person ticked on others. So then it was 4. Should we proceed? Question 3. So for me, what I have here, I did not enter something under the values there. Remember on the values we have to specify the responses, because question 3 had answers attached, right? If you had specified, you can put, okay, just for as an example, let's assume that that person ticked on question 3 is on, what's your marital status? Let's say this one said married, so we are going to put 2 there. Then now, we skipped question 5 up to question 12. Because in the same way we've entered this, just in the same manner we are going to enter question 2. I mean, in the same manner we are going to enter everything from question 5 all the way up to question 12 in that order. You just be entering what someone ticked. If they ticked on female, you write the code that of time. And here it becomes very easy, provided you had created your template this side properly. You just be following things in order. So now we are on question 13, right? Question 13A. So let's assume that this person ticked no for Unza said. What are we going to put on question 2? Question 13A? We put 2. Let's assume that this person skipped both yes or no for Unza response on Q13B. What are we going to put there? Sorry? This person skipped Unza response. They did not tick on yes, they did not tick on no, they skipped. What are we going to put there? Sorry? 0. We don't have anything coded as 0. Can skip, right? So now my question is, if someone skipped that particular variable, which is Unza response, which is falling under Q13B, what are we going to put there? Yes, sir. What can we put there? They did tick on yes, and they did not tick on no for Q13B. What can we put there? Sorry? So it means we leave it blank. We cannot assume that if they did not tick on it and they said no. Are we together? We leave it blank and move on to Q13C. So if you put, let's say you put a 0, remember, even if you put a 0, it will not do anything to your data set because we don't have any variable coded as 0. So even if we put a 0, just more like leaving it blank. Are we together? Then we move on to Q13C. Let's say maybe for Q13C, this person said yes for Unza pop. So what are we going to put there? 1. Then Q13D, let's assume that this person ticked on no. What are we? So it means we are putting a 2, right? So it means doing that, it means I've entered the first questionnaire. So I'll put it aside and pick my second questionnaire. Are we together? And start again from the QID. Are we following? Then I'll enter. If what I've picked is now my questionnaire number 40, I'll put 40. So here on the QID doesn't matter the order. Are we together? Doesn't matter the order. I can start with question number 1, questionnaire number 1, questionnaire number 40. Doesn't matter the order. If you want to put them in an order, well and good. It doesn't matter. It do not affect your data set. Are we together? But on the variable view, just ensure that the questions should be ordered from the first question to the last question. Are we together? In that way, when it comes to the data view, it will be very easy for you to be entering your data with easy, just starting from question 1, question 2, question 3. Now you can imagine if you had jumbled, you started with question 1, you had put question 40 there, then question 2. So it means even in your question, you have to start skipping. Question 1, you pick, you enter, then you navigate. Question number 40, you enter. That's why from the variable view, everything should be in chronological order. Are we together? So that it becomes easy for you to play around with the data view. So you're saying this is questionnaire number 40, and this person ticked on 1, which is male, right? Then this person is aged 20. Let's write 20 as a weight. Let's write 20 as a weight. 20, once you write 20, then you can move on to question 3. Can move on to question 3. What are you getting? The 20 is disappearing, right? What could be the reason to that? Anyone who can give it a try? What could be the reason to that? As simple as that. We had coded it from the variable view that question 2 can only be numeric. So when we enter something which is non-numeric, when we enter something which is non-numeric, SPSS will reject it. Whatever we are putting from the variable view is more like a command to say you can only accept something which is numeric. Anything which is non-numeric, reject. Are we together? So that's what has happened there. The 20 has disappeared because we had coded it as numeric. So now I can write 20 as a letter. As a number. Then question 4, you can put 1 there. Then let's assume that for question 13, someone answered no on question 12. Because question 13, remember, is a follow-up question from question 12, right? Question 12 is as follows. I'll read. Question 12 is as follows. Have you ever heard of organization dealing with HIV/AIDS issues on campus? Yes or no? Are we together? Then question 13 is, if yes, which organization? Now let's assume that someone answered no on question 12. What will happen to question 13? So it means question 13 will not apply to them because they said no to question 12. And question 13 is only designed for those people who said what? Yes for question 12. In fact, here, it was supposed to be if yes to question 12. Which organization, so that someone is able to tell, oh, if yes from question 2. But if you put it, if yes, which organization, they'll think this is a standalone question. Are we together? So that's why there must be clarity in everything that we are doing. We must ensure that there's no ambiguity. Otherwise, if what we've put here is vague or there is ambiguity, it's very easy for someone to give you a response far from the question itself. Are we together? So here it was supposed to be if yes in question 12 above, or if yes for question 12, which organization? Then someone will know that if I answered, in fact you can even specify in the question that if your answer in question 12 is no, please skip this question to question 14 if you've got question 14. Or if question 13 is your last question, you can just say, please leave this question blank. Are we together? Then in softwares like SPSS, you can even code this where you say, if the answer in question 12 is no, skip to question 14. Then by default, immediately you just enter no for question 12, then it will even skip question 13 and go to question 14. That is important. It will help you to have quality data because it's very easy for you to forget A. And someone there answered no, then you go on. Because someone did not understand the question properly. They'll go on and fill out unza said and what and what and what. So it means even if you forget and you go and enter, it means you are going to create errors in your data, because this question is not designed for those that said yes. Are we together? So if they did not answer question 13, if they answered no on question 12, it means the entire question 13 will be blank. And it means I'm done. Then I move on to the third questionnaire. So have you seen that the data is very easy? It's very, very easy. So now my assignment for you tonight is that you remember from the variable view here, right? We only ended up to which question? Question 4, then we skipped. So I would like you to go and enter everything from question 1 all the way up to question 13, just from the variable view. Are we together? Then let's save now this data set. So the shortcut for saving is always the Control S. But we are going to use a traditional way of saving. Have you seen the file left top? Click on file left top. Then check until you find the option which is save. Have you seen that option? Then right side is even giving you the shortcut. Control S. That's a shortcut. In the same manner, the way Word is, the way Excel is, if you've introduced or typed in something new, if you wanted to close it direct from the X option right top, it asks you to save, right? Even SPSS, if you've introduced something new, to ask you to save before you close and ask you that saving, closing this without saving, it means you are going to lose all the changes. So have you seen where it is written file name? File name? Are we together? Are we able to see file name? Question 6 is open-ended question. Just like the way we entered question 2. We just specified question 2 that it was numeric, but for question 13, question 6, it's going to be string. Then under label, you put the question itself. What role should students play in the fight against HIV/AIDS? Then under values, you don't have any responses, so you leave it blank. Exactly. So if someone said the student should conduct awareness campaign, then I'll type the entire response. Whatever someone wrote, I have to type it, because now that's now pure qualitative, where now getting narration. And actually, some people, depending on the nature of study, some people they can even write up to 3 pages. It's a response. So we have to enter it. Yes, we have to enter it. But I'll explain, because there are 2 ways in which we can analyze question 6. There's thematic analysis, where we group something based on similarities so that we can convert it to quantitative. Or we can now just go straight into start doing verbatims. So I'll explain so that it becomes very easy. Instead of entering the entire 6 pages, I'll just decide to look at the questions and just understand the flow of answers. Then I'll know what, okay, then I can start with an opening statement and then just quote some respondents. Yes. So are we together here? Have we seen the file name there? So it means if I want to give my file a new name, then I can type it. So you can give your file any name that will be very easy for you to remember or to recognize. So for me, I'll just put it in my name, Bright. Then when you check right there's an option which is save, right? But don't click on save yet. You need also to choose a folder where you want to save your file. Otherwise, it's possible that you can save without knowing where you saved that file, right? So are you able to see on top there? Have you seen something which is look in on top? Have you seen it aside? So there, have you seen it? Look in on top, look in. You see it, right? Exactly. So when you click, there's an option by default to give you documents, right? So it means if you saved your file directly, and your file will be saved in documents. But let's say I don't want to save my file in documents, then I can decide where I would want to save my file, right? So you can always navigate. If you click on the arrow right side there, it will open there. So you decide where you want to save your file, right? So if you save it on your desktop, then it means your file will be saved on your desktop. So when you want to open your file, you can just go on your desktop and search for your file there, right? So for me, I'll maintain this. So for me, I'm changing this. I'm going to my desktop, Unza Seita. So I want to save this folder in my Unza Seita. Are we together? Then once I've selected the folder where I want to save, now I can click on save. Have we seen the save option right side? I don't know why mine is failing to save in this folder. What's happening? Are you also having the same problems?
Yes.
I don't know why. Yes, maybe try to open the folder. The specified file users template is read only on view. Have you managed to save this side? Have you managed to save? So have you managed to save? Okay, great. So it means I've saved it. Even if I close the computer, I will not lose my files. Any question on how to do with the variable view and the data view before we can move on to opening the actual data set? We are ending up to 2030. That's what we agreed yesterday, right? So we'll be covering 2 hours. Any question? Is everything okay? So I prefer by starting dealing with the variable view and the data view because I don't want just to impose the data set on you. Because it's very easy for me just to give you the data set. Let's begin doing the data analysis and we don't know how to create the same data set. It's possible that we can have the questionnaire, but we still have to enter the data set. So showing you how to create the template and also how to enter the same data now. So once you have the data, that's when I can move on into the analysis. Once you do the analysis, now you move on into interpretation. So any question before we can navigate? Is everything clear? Okay, so we can move on. Let's go to our Unza Seita folder, then open the dataset which is SPSS training dataset. SPSS training dataset. Unza Seita, then you just double click on SPSS training dataset. It will just take about a second to open. The reason is very simple. Since your SPSS already open, it doesn't take long to open. But if you are opening this for the very first time, it will take about 2 to 3 minutes just loading. But because we have SPSS already loaded, once you click on it, it will open. So try to navigate between the variable view and the data view. Navigate between the variable view and the data view. Let's start with the variable view. Is it similar to what we are entering? Then question 13 there, it was multiple response and I said it can only be numeric. So there is need for changing there for question 13. Have you noticed that it's string, right? Now here's the thing. I've given you an assignment. Please don't just go and copy this. No. Try to do it on your own. The reason why I've given you this assignment, I want to be sure that we've understood this part. Because what we've opened here is exactly what I've asked you to go and do. But I don't want you just to go and copy here. Remember, the time will come when you'll be alone with a questionnaire. What do you do? So that's I want you to go and practice. Where you miss it, you can send me a WhatsApp message or you can call me at any point, even at 01. Provided I'm awake, I will respond to you. If I don't answer at 01, then just know that I'm dreaming. I'm somewhere in Las Vegas in America, right? And I'm not a whiskey person, so if I don't answer at 24 hours, just know that I'm sleeping. Okay, so now let's go to the data view. Are these responses similar? What are you having in the data view? Is it giving you 1, 2, or is it giving you single, no education? Have we opened the data set? Let's be talking. We are just about 7 of us, so let's be communicating. Let's be communicating. What do you have? Are you having like 1, 2, 3, or is it giving you single, no education, Christianity? 1. Okay, great. Have you seen the option which is help? Option help. Under help, what do you have under help? There's something which is coming in boxes, right? Then the next to help, what's that option? You've got A and the 1, right? Click on the same option. What has happened? Exactly. And do you know where those responses are coming from? You quoted them from the variable view. So in as much as you can see a 1 there, it doesn't qualify it to be numeric. Remember, the actual thing there is supposed to be single. The actual thing there is supposed to be no education. The actual thing there is supposed to be what? Christian. The actual thing is supposed to be what? Yes, are we together? But when you are dealing with quantitative, we don't even code this. It will just be numbers. 1, 2, 20, 40, not like the way I have here. So one day it was just to help me enter data quickly and with ease. Instead of me always typing no education, I'll just put in the code attached to no education. Are we together? So this is the reason I was saying that anything which is coded as string and anything which falls under nominal and what? Ordinal, it will fall under qualitative. So this is also qualitative. This data set that we have here, all these variables are qualitative except question 2, which is on age. I mean, which in this case is question 1. You've seen there the 16, 17, right? So you've noticed that even if you go on the same option, you click again and click again. Have you noticed that on question 1, there's nothing which is changing there? It's just intact. Have you noticed that? Try to keep on changing. There's nothing changing for question 1, right? This is how the quantitative data set is supposed to be. Even if you click there, because it's not attached to anything. It's just a number as it comes. If it comes as 20, that's a number, that's fine. Is the data view making sense to all of us? So when you check the data view there, it's going all the way up to questionnaire number 40. So it means the sample size for this study was 40. Are we together? Yes, I can ask a question. Question 1 is pure quantitative because there is just pure numbers. Even if you click on that option which is changing the variables there, if you click, have you noticed that it's not attached to anything? It's just a number. That first person who answered 16, even if I click there, 16 there is still there. But for these other variables, have you noticed that it's changing? Sorry, I just mixed things. I just mixed things when entering. It was supposed to be sex, but here, sex is coming. Actually, there's no sex here, right? Yes, question 1 is age, then question 2 is sex, yes. No, question 2 is marital status. Then here I included the Q3, which is no education. So in our questionnaire, there is no education, there is sex. So I skipped that question and introduced a new question. Is everything making sense to all of us? Okay. So before you can proceed now to start doing the data analysis, you need to check for missing values in your data. Are we together? You need to check for missing values. Only when you don't have missing values, that's when now you can proceed to do the data analysis. Are we together? We are finishing. Then missing values is only key, or rather fundamental, only for the background information. Are we together? Only for the background information. So we can only check for missing values only for the background variables or for the questions which came under the background, right? So in this case, we had how many questions under background? We had 4, right? So in this case, you've got Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. That's where the background questions are ending. So it means we have to check for the missing values for these 4 questions. Are we together? If we check that there are no missing values, then we know that everything is okay. Are we together? Because this is the background, and I said that you can now use this as your independent variable to test the assertion. For instance, I can say there is a relationship between marital status and knowing one's HIV status. I want to test whether knowing one's HIV status is independent or dependent on someone's marital status. Are we together? So I think we can end here. Since they have packed the computer, what has happened? Okay. Okay, we end here and proceed tomorrow. So please come with your computer. Sir, we've got power here. We've got power here. So when you are doing it on your own, it becomes very easy and very good all of us. So now real business. I did not close my video. Oh